In this lecture, we'll be going over the assignment question. You have $50. You buy an item that is $15 with a tax of 3%. Print how much money you have left. Well, there's multiple ways to be able to solve this problem. I'm going to show one example, but if your code ended up matching my code, then that's a perfect and acceptable solution for your very first assignment ever, and you being able to complete this by yourself was awesome. So let's create a variable called money, which is equal to 50. And now let's create an item, which is equal to 15. And now let's also create the last variable of tax, which is going to equal 3%. So we're going to want to do a floating point number of 0.03. And now let's say how much money you have left is going to equal money minus item minus, in parentheses, item times tax. And now let's finally print money left. And let's save the application and run assignment. We can see that we get a value of 34.55. So if you have $50 and you subtract 15, that's going to put you at $35. And then the percent of 0.03, which is 3% of 15, must only be about 45 cents. So subtracted is going to equal to 34.55. Now another way you could accomplish this without actually typing any variables at all is you can just come in here and say print parentheses 50 minus 15 minus, in parentheses, 15 times 0.03. If we save this and run the assignment, we'll see that we get the same solution for both equations. Now the only difference is here we are creating variables, which is slightly easier to understand, but over here works perfectly fine as well. This wraps up this lecture on our very first assignment, and I will see you in the next video. In this exercise, we're going to be doing our string assignment together. And the reason we're doing it together is because there is a lesson to be learned here, which
let's jump into the next lecture and create ourselves a virtual environment.
But if you get stuck, just resume the video. So the assignment is to ask the user how many days until their birthday, and then to print an approximation number of weeks until their birthday. And a week is equal to 7 days, and decimals are allowed. So what we can say is we need to ask the user for a number and then divide that number by 7 to get the number of weeks. So let's start by creating a variable called days, which is equal to an input of how many days until your birthday. And then once we capture this number, we probably just want to print days divided by 7. Now watch what happens when we run this application. How many days until your birthday? I'm going to say 300. And boom, we get a huge error of this print days divided by 7 does not work because of a type error of unsupported operand types for string and int. Now this is an interesting issue. We're trying to divide the number 300 by 7. And you would think this works because we're asking the user to pass in an integer. Well, what we can do here is we can wrap days with something called type. And now what this is going to do is going to print the type of what days is. So let's rerun the application. And let's type in 300 again. And there it is. This solves our issue. Days is a string. So even though the user is typing in 300, Python does not think 300 is an integer because it's as if you just typed in quotation marks 300, just like this. And this cannot be divided by a number. So what we need to do is convert days from strings to an integer before dividing the integer of days divided by 7. We can do this by something called a wrapper. Maybe we can use an integer wrapper by saying int parentheses right over the input. Now what this wrapper does is it converts a number or string to an integer or returns 0 if no arguments are given. If x is a number, return x. So what this is saying is when a string gets passed in, if the string is able to be converted to an integer, it will do this. If the string is not able to be converted to an integer, then it's just going to return 0 or it's going to throw an error. So now if we run the application and we type in 300, we can see that days is of type int now and not type string. So if we remove this type and we now say days divided by 7 and we rerun the application, we can now see that we get 42.857 and so on and so forth. Now if we wanted just to make sure it was just to the second decimal, we can now wrap this inside something called round. And we can say round, wrap days divided by 7, and then inside this we can say comma 2. If we rerun the application now, we can see that we just get 42.86 as the response because we are using a round function that is given to us by Python. And what round will allow us to do is round a number to a given precision in decimal digits. And you can do this by, after passing in the equation or the number, we can specify how many decimals we want at the end, which is going to be 2. Now for this assignment, round was not needed. I'm just throwing this in here as an added bonus to your learning. This wraps up the string assignment that we will be doing together, and I will see you in the next video. In this lecture, we'll be going over the lists assignment. Now the list assignment was to create a list of 5 animals and call this variable zoo. Delete the animal at the third index of the list zoo. Append a new animal at the end of the list zoo. Delete the animal at the beginning of the list zoo. Print all the animals, and then print only the first 3 animals. So let's start by creating a list of 5 animals and calling that variable zoo. So let's start by saying zoo equals brackets monkey, zebra, gorilla, lion, and tiger. And now we need to delete the animal at the third index. So I'm going to say zoo.pop3. And now we need to append a new animal at the end of the list. So here I'm going to say zoo.append lizard. Delete the animal at the beginning of the list. So here we can say pop again and zoo.pop0. And now print all of the animals. And here we can say print zoo, which is going to say zebra, gorilla, tiger, and lizard. Or we can say for x in zoo, print x. And this is using loops, which we haven't covered yet in this course, but just wanted to keep you seeing new features that we'll be going over in the future. Both solutions are completely correct. And now for the last step, we need to print only the first 3 animals. Here we can say print zoo, and then as the bracket 03 is a slicing, where if we run this application, we'll get zebra, gorilla, and tiger, the first 3 elements. And just remember that it's printing zebra, gorilla, and tiger, and that's because we popped and deleted away monkey and lion already, which just leaves zebra, gorilla, and tiger left with lizard as the last element. This wraps up the list assignment, and I will see you in the next video. In this lecture, we're going to be going over the if-else assignment. So the assignment was to create a variable, which we will call grade, holding an integer between 0 and 100. We then need to code if, elif, and else statements to print the letter grade of the number grade variable. So if the variable of grade is like a 70, it should return C. So let's start by creating a grade which is equal to 73. And now if grade is greater than or equal to 90, we need to return an A because A is between 90 and 100. And now we want to say elif grade is greater than or equal to 80 and grade is less than 90. Because then we want to print a B. And now you may get a little yellow line. If we hover over this, Python is telling us that, hey, there's a simple way to be able to write this AND statement. If we click on it, it's going to return elif 80 is less than or equal to grade and less than 90. So if grade is greater than or equal to 80, but also less than 90, this is another way to be able to write an AND statement that is reusing the same variable 2 times. We then want to say elif grade is greater than 70 and grade is less than 80. And we can also just follow the same standpoint that this is using by saying elif 70 is less than or equal to grade and less than 80. Do it once more for the D. So grade needs to be greater than or equal to 60 but less than 70. And lastly, else print F. And the reason we can just say else is because all the other conditions must fail, which means this number is going to be less than 60. Let's try it out and save the application and run the file. We get C. Let's make it an 81. We get a B. Let's make it a 100. We get an A. Let's make it 63. We get a D, and let's make it a 27. We get an F. This wraps up the if and else assignment, and I will see you in the next video. In this lecture, we're going to go over the loops assignment. Now the loops assignment can be pretty tricky to complete, as we're going to have to use a for loop inside the while loop to actually render the correct response. So let's walk through it step by step. Let's start by giving the variable myList, which is equal to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We can just copy this directly. create a while loop that prints all the elements of my list variable 3 times. However, when printing the elements, use a for loop to print the elements. Okay, so we can say x is equal to 0, while x is less than 3, x plus equals 1, for I in my list, print I. If we run this application, we can see that we get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. However, there's one more step. If the element of the for loop is equal to Monday, continue without printing. And that's because no one's excited that it's Monday. So right under my list, as we're iterating through my list, let's check to see if I is equal to Monday. And if it is, let's just continue. Now run the application. And we can see that we get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Just for us to be able to see better, I'm going to write another print statement with a bunch of dashes. And here we can see each set of the 3 terms siloed for us to be able to easily be able to read. This wraps up the loops assignment, and I will see you in the next video. In this lecture, we'll be going over the dictionary assignment. Now the assignment is based on the dictionary of my vehicle, which model equals Ford, make is Explorer, year is 2018, and mileage is 40,000. We are first to create a for loop to print all keys and values, create a new variable vehicle2, which is a copy of my vehicle, add a new key number of tires to vehicle2 with that variable and key equal to 4, delete the mileage key and value from vehicle2, and then to print just the keys from vehicle2. Let's start by creating the dictionary. I'm just going to copy my vehicle. And the next thing we need to do is create a for loop to print all keys and values. We can do this by saying for x, y in my vehicles.items, print x and y. We now need to create a new variable vehicle2, which is a copy of my vehicle. We can do this by saying vehicle2 equals myvehicle.copy. We now need to add a new key number of tires to vehicle2 variable that is equal to 4. We now want to delete the mileage key and value from vehicle2, so we can say vehicle2.popMileage. And lastly, we just want to print the keys from vehicle2, and we can accomplish this by saying for I and vehicle2, print I. Let's right click and run the application. And we can see we get all of the information, which is the key and value of my vehicle. We get the model Ford, make Explorer, year 2018, and mileage is 40,000. And we also get the model, make, year, and number of tires, which is the keys from vehicle2. This wraps up the dictionary assignment, and I will see you in the next video. In this lecture, we'll be going over the function assignment. Now, the function assignment was to create a function that takes in 3 parameters, first name, last name, and age, and returns a dictionary based on those values. So let's start by creating a new function. So def user dictionary, first name, last name, and age as the parameters. I'm then going to create the dictionary, so created underscore user underscore dictionary equals curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets, we need 3 keys. And since we're going to make the values first name, last name, and age, those are going to be great keys before we save the value of what the user passes in. So let's do for the first key value pair, first name as strings, colon first name. And remember, the key is going to be first name. And even though we say first name after the colon, that's actually going to be the value the user passes in as the first name. So if the user passes in like Eric Roby age 32, and we're going to have 3 keys of first name, last name, and age, the values are going to be the Eric Roby and 32. And now let's make a second key, last name, which is last name. And then the last key, let's make age, which is age. And finally, let's return the created user dictionary. Let's now make a new variable called solution dictionary, which is equal to the user dictionary function we just created, and we'll pass in Eric Roby 32, and I'm going to hard code the parameters. And lastly, let's just print the solution dictionary. If we save and then run the function assignment, we'll see that we get first name Eric, last name Roby, age 32, based on a function where we pass in Eric, Roby, and 32. Now there's other ways we can accomplish this exact same assignment and solution, but this is just the one that I came up with. So if you get this as your response, let's say you're right. This wraps up the function assignments, and I will see you in the next video.